Astute Quotations, Part 20. The best time for planning a book is while you're doing the dishes. Agatha Christie. Solvency is entirely a matter of temperament and not of income. Essayist Logan Pearsall Smith, 1865 to 1846. What I like in a good author is not what he says, but what he whispers. Logan Pearsall Smith. On a similar note, do you have money or does it have you? Werner Erhard. Boredom is the gateway to fascination. Chinese proverb. Who made you the Pope of this dump? Rodney Dangerfield from Caddyshack. It's easier to do a job right than to explain why you didn't. President Martin Van Buren. No one has a finer command of language than the person who keeps his mouth shut. Sam Rayburn, former Speaker of the House. The best musicians are people who never consider themselves to be artists or musicians. Richard James, who goes by the name of Aphex Twin. Most models are emotionally abandoned. Eileen Ford, head of the Ford Modeling Agency. Future ages will look upon us as a people so immersed in the pursuit of wealth as to be blind to higher considerations. Alfred Russel Wallace, naturalist. Truth is born into this world only with pangs and tribulations, and every fresh truth is received unwillingly. Alfred Russel Wallace. A band of convicts would risk their lives to give aid as quickly as a band of millionaires. Clarence Darrow. You can't control a young horse unless you control yourself. Journalist Lincoln Steffens. Any great change must expect opposition because it shakes the very foundation of privilege. Lucretia Mott, 1793 to 1880, social reformer. History is a guide to navigation in perilous times. David McCulloch, historian. Drawing on my fine command of the English language, I said nothing. Humorist Robert Benchley, 1889 to 1945. He that succeeds makes an important thing of the immediate task. Magazine editor William Feather. Do not the most moving moments of our lives find us without words? Marcel Marceau, French mime. Get your facts straight first, and then you can distort them as much as you please. That's from Mark Twain. Your music's all right, but it's a bit too Steely Dan. We fought wars to get rid of that stuff. Mark E. Smith of The Fall. There is no greater sorrow than remembering happy times in the midst of misery. Dante. A woman who is sure of her own wits is a match at any time for a man who is not sure of his own temper. Novelist Wilkie Collins, 1824 to 1889. No sensible man ever engages, unprepared, in a fencing match of words with a woman. Wilkie Collins. Groups with guitars are on the way out. Dick Rowe of Decca Records after canceling a Beatles audition in 1961. John and I literally used to sit down and say, "Now let's write a swimming pool." Paul McCartney discussing how the Beatles were artists who were not beyond making money. I always wait until a jury has spoken before I anticipate what they will do. Attorney General Janet Reno. Revenge is a dish best served cold. From The Godfather. Drop the gun. Take the cannoli. Also from The Godfather. It's all very well in practice, but it will never work in theory. French saying. A person often meets his destiny on the road he took to avoid it. Jean de La Fontaine, 1621 to 1695. Man is so made that when anything fires his soul, impossibilities vanish. Jean de La Fontaine. Don't let the same dog bite you twice. Chuck Berry. It is the loose ends with which men hang themselves. Zelda Fitzgerald. The quality of wit inspires more admiration than confidence. George Santayana, philosopher. You can accomplish anything when you're in touch with your purpose. Werner Erhard. If you want to make something happen that hasn't happened before, you've got to allow yourself to make a lot of mistakes. Bjork. You never know a woman until you've met her in court. Norman Mailer. The only thing that stops a bad guy with a nuke is a good guy with a nuke. Sarah Palin, former governor of Alaska. You betcha. Words of wisdom from that towering intellectual named Sarah Palin, who can see Russia from her house. I put on women's clothing and hang around in bars. Michael Palin of Monty Python fame, one Palin who actually makes sense. You can't get a suit of armor and a rubber chicken just like that. You have to plan ahead. Michael Palin. Everybody likes a kidder, but nobody lends him any money. Arthur Miller from Death of a Salesman. Even if you are behind, a sustained look of control and confidence can give you a mental edge that results in victory. Diane Arbus, photographer. We often take for granted the very things that most deserve our gratitude. Short story writer Cynthia Ozick. Intelligence without audacity is not enough. I must have the guts to explode the game. Chess grandmaster Garry Kasparov. How do I work? I grope. Einstein. My expectations of other people, I double them upon myself. Soul singer James Brown. Trivial facts are often the best hints to what is going on. Supreme Court Chief Justice John Roberts. Just because the river is quiet doesn't mean the crocodiles have left. Malaysian proverb. I'm so bored with the USA. Song title from The Clash. If you don't knit, bring a good book. theater review by Dorothy Parker, circa 1933. The best players don't read the books about baseball. They're too busy playing the game. Michael Kay, announcer for the New York Yankees. There's no better way of defending a long line than by moving into an enemy's territory. General Robert E. Lee. Now you can go where they get things done. The Dead Kennedys from Holiday in Cambodia. They were a landmark punk group with a name that's still despicable. Behind almost every woman you've ever heard of stands a man who let her down. Naomi Bliven, book critic. Other bands wanted to wreck hotel rooms. Roxy Music wanted to redecorate them. Brian Ferry. Some problems are so complex that you have to be highly intelligent and well-informed just to be undecided about them. Lawrence J. Peter, author of The Peter Principle. Bring out the comfy chair. Graham Chapman from Monty Python. A wounded deer leaps highest. Emily Dickinson. Yeah, the future record buyers. Snide reply in 1990 to Janet Jackson's claim that children are the future, correctly suggesting that Janet was little more than an opportunist. Definition of impunity. Wealth. Ambrose Bierce from his Devil's Dictionary, 1906. If you would like to make yourself agreeable wherever you go, listen to the grievances of others, but never relate your own. Humorist Josh Billings, 1818 to 1885. Half of the troubles of this life can be traced to saying yes too quickly and not saying no soon enough. Josh Billings. Sanctions are a tool used by the weak. Vyacheslav Volodin, aide to Russian President Vladimir Putin. If you can remember anything about the 1960s, you really weren't there. Attributed to Paul Kantner of Jefferson Airplane. It's not the great temptations that ruin us, it is the little ones. John William DeForest, soldier and author, 1826 to 1906. Wit is educated insolence. Aristotle. We play the machines, but the machines also play us. Rolf Hutter of Kraftwerk. Nothing will be done merely because it contributes to beauty, convenience, comfort, or prestige. U.S. Army Statement, 1945. Even paranoids have real enemies. Poet Delmore Schwartz. Shame occurs when you haven't been able to get away with the who you want people to think you are. Carl Whitaker, psychotherapist. She might have fooled me, but she didn't fool my mother. Norman Bates from Psycho in 1960. There's no surer way to misread any document than to read it literally. Judge Learned Hand. Words are chameleons that reflect the color of their environment. Learned Hand. People who don't take care of their drums really annoy me. John Bonham of Led Zeppelin. How Hard the Tyrants Die. Writer Elbert Hubbard, 1856 to 1915. Life is for each man a solitary cell whose walls are mirrors. Playwright Eugene O'Neill. There's no one out there. Werner Erhard, meaning basically the same thing as O'Neill. What voice? Per Werner Erhard, the chatter we hear when someone reminds us of that little voice always running inside our heads. Sanity is madness put to good use. Philosopher George Santayana. Blasphemy is what an old dogma screams at a new truth. Attorney Robert Green Ingersoll, 1833 to 1899. Often I pretended to a cameraman to know less than I did. That way I got more cooperation. Actress Ida Lupino. The more complete the despotism, the more smoothly all things move on the surface. Elizabeth Cady Stanton, suffragist. Self-development is a higher duty than self-sacrifice. Elizabeth Cady Stanton. Discipline, more than numbers, gives one army superiority over another. George Washington. A vast wasteland. Newton Minow, former chairman of the Federal Communications Commission. The SS Minnow, the name of the stranded ship on Gilligan's Island, named in honor of Newton Minow. There was never an idea started that woke up men out of their stupid indifference, but that its originator was spoken of as a crank. Oliver Wendell Holmes, Sr. Good manners are made up of petty sacrifices. Emerson. Hang 'em first, try 'em later. Judge Roy Bean of Texas, 1825 to 1903. Believe that life is worth living, and your belief will help create the fact. William James. Like sands through the hourglass, so are the days of our lives. Opening line from the iconic soap opera Days of Our Lives, taken from the 23rd Psalm. Running on Empty, a meaningless and trite song title from pathetic soft rock performer Jackson Browne. Incompetent people invariably make trouble for others. Novelist Larry McMurtry. When Hitler declared war on the United States, he was betting that German soldiers raised up in the Hitler Youth would always outfight American soldiers brought up in the Boy Scouts. He lost that bet. The Boy Scouts had been taught how to figure their way out of their own problems. Historian Stephen Ambrose. War is the unfolding of miscalculations. Historian Barbara Tuchman. It's better to be looked over than overlooked. Mae West from Belle of the 90s, 1934. In order to more fully understand this reality, we must take into account other dimensions of a broader reality. Physicist John Archibald Wheeler. Every philosophy is tinged with the coloring of some secret imaginative which never emerges explicitly into its trains of reasoning. Alfred North Whitehead, or in other words, every philosophy is imbued with its own hidden agenda. I feel uncertain whether I am in general on the right track. Einstein, 1949. Does she or doesn't she? The provocative advertising slogan for Clairol hair coloring in the 1960s. I hit 'em where they ain't. Wee Willie Keeler of the Baltimore Orioles, when asked in 1897 to explain his remarkable hitting success. A cat wearing gloves catches no mice. Benjamin Franklin. The used key is always brighter. Ben Franklin. There is not so helpless and pitiable an object in the world as a landsman beginning a sailor's life. Richard Henry Dana, Jr. from 2 Years Before the Mast, 1840. Prayer among sane people has never superseded practical efforts to secure the desired end. Philosopher George Santayana. The highest form of vanity is love of fame. Santayana. What is jealousy but a reflection of your own failures? Mystery writer Michael Connelly. The best crime novels are not about how a detective works on a case. They are about how a case works on a detective. Michael Connelly. There is no client as scary as an innocent man. Michael Connelly. An Innocent Man. A forgettable song title from a regrettable album from an opportunistic and manufactured soft rock schlager named Billy Joel. Gone in the Instant of Becoming. Eminent psychologist William James describing the present moment, which occurs both in and out of time. People don't come to church for preachments, of course, but to daydream about God. Kurt Vonnegut. I like the silent church before the service begins better than any preaching. Emerson. Every man's task is his life preserver. Emerson. New Age music is something that session musicians do in their spare time. Mike Oldfield, composer of Tubular Bells. Marriage is all right, but I think it's carrying love a little too far. Texas Guinan, actress, 1884 to 1933. Some persons are likable in spite of their unswerving integrity. Journalist Don Marcus, 1878 to 1937. I haven't been the same since that house fell on my sister. Heard in yoga class. A superior pilot uses his superior judgment to avoid situations that require the use of his superior skill. Frank Borman, astronaut. The mark of a great ship handler is never getting into situations that require great ship handling. Navy Admiral Ernest King. None are more hopelessly enslaved than those who falsely believe they are free. Goethe. Try to be one of the people on whom nothing is lost. Henry James, from 1888. A tradition is kept alive only by something being added to it. Henry James. Ever get the feeling you've been cheated? Johnny Rotten of the Sex Pistols wrapping up a show in San Francisco. 9 times out of 10, the slanderous tongue belongs to a disappointed person. Statesman and educator George Bancroft, 1800 to 1891. Is your washroom breeding Bolsheviks? Ad for Scott Towels from around 1930. No man can build his security upon the nobleness of another person. Willa Cather. Although it is not true that all conservatives are stupid people, it is true that most stupid people are conservative. John Stuart Mill, 1806 to 1873. When nothing seems to help, I go look at a stone cutter hammering away at his rock perhaps 100 times without so much as a crack showing in it. Journalist Jacob Riis, 1849 to 1914. Half of the harm that is done in this world is due to people who want to feel important. T.S. Eliot. The bigger the trophy, the more trivial the contest. William Rainey Harper, first president of the University of Chicago. The only reason we wore sunglasses on stage was because we couldn't stand the sight of the audience. John Cale of the Velvet Underground. More history is made by secret handshakes than by battles, bills, and proclamations. Novelist John Barth. My judges preach against free love openly, but they practice it secretly. Victoria Woodhull, women's rights activist, 1838 to 1937. I'm a poser, and I don't care. Polystyrene of X-ray specs. A refined simplicity is the characteristic of all high-bred deportment. James Fenimore Cooper. Don't make me release the flying monkeys. Anonymous. You take people as far as they will go, not as far as you would like them to go. Jeanette Rankin, the first woman to serve in Congress. When we are in the middle of a paradigm, it is hard to imagine any other paradigm. Economist Adam Smith. When a paradigm shifts, you see substantial anxiety. Joel Barker, futurist. Every paradigm uncovers the very problems it will never solve. Joel Barker. A leader is a person you will follow to a place you wouldn't go by yourself. Barker. Once you've established a paradigm, each move you make begins to use up that paradigm. Werner Erhard. In the wrong paradigm, even the right actions don't work. Werner Erhard. When paradigms change, the world itself changes with them. Physicist Thomas Kuhn. Buddy, can you paradigm? Heard on Skid Row. And this completes